So, welcome back to another Ladder Legends replay analysis. This time from Carsoncho. Said, wouldn't mind a little analysis on this one. I think I was executing this well and ended up going to this base trade, playing whack-a-mole, trying to kill bases. This is a builder link that I linked from Pig. I probably could have done better by not losing all the roaches, but I think I got good damage for the investment. Once I got into the base trade, I'm a little lost. I think I know now when this occurs, rather than roaming around with a ball of units, I should just send a couple of units all over the map. That's the groovy influence, isn't it? Letting the surprise Banshee wreck me was unnecessary. It does sound unnecessary. Again, part of this odd base trade situation, not sure how to play it out. Edit as I rewatch, I still had mutas, and as soon as I saw the Banshee, I should have just stayed on the Banshees. Yes, that's a very mature decision. I totally agree. I haven't even seen the situation, but like whenever you have mutas out and they have like harassments around the map, it's often much better to just stabilize the harassments than to try to you don't like if you think you're ahead, even especially if you think you're ahead and if you think you're better, but in both these situations, if you think you have a better game plan, or if you think you're ahead, or both, then it's very good to just like use your like units that give you map control to take the map control. If they're like disrespecting the map control by having units still out to harass, take care of that first, and you will get less done, but like you also risk less. So that's a very mature decision. I would, generally speaking, support. Okay, and now I know I just need to send units all over the map to all the corners, and I would have ended it much sooner. Yeah. Okay, well, let's take a look. Okay, so here we have DingGus. It's our opponent, and Carsoncho in the bottom. So let's go on and see what our build order looks like. So this is a 16 pool. Okay. Okay. There's a note here, which is it doesn't matter, but I'll note it just so you know. In this situation, you should just make the Overlord. You will get more money more faster. You float like one larva for like not even half a second. So like I suppose you could argue that it's better to like not float the larva for like half the second than it is to have like slightly more minerals, like 10 more minerals or 5 more minerals. But you get more minerals if you don't do this extractor trick here. It's harder to justify the non-larva float if you aren't making drones. So since we're planning on, it sounds like we're planning on doing some roach attack. Probably we shouldn't be doing it. But and I'll just let you know, I don't ever really do this extractor anymore. There's a lot of reasons why. Also, if it's like so negligible, then I would like the difference is so negligible that I would opt to simplify and like reduce the amount of things I can screw up. So I would not do this extractor trick. I would just make an overload at 12 and then make 3 drones when it pops. But to each their own. $17 hatchery, approved. Drone, we should drone here. Drone's a bit late, but approved. I would probably, I mean, unless this is a very specific part of the build where it's like you need the gas, I would probably keep on gas and just rally this guy to make. And unless we're skipping queen, I would probably wait until the queen has started to make this. But let's see what the build is cooking. Lings are good. I think the lings are always good. You just one super attractive thing of pool first is you don't have to make any lings if you don't want to, but like just having the lings out always to threaten to go across map, to threaten to deny scouting, You know, especially if it's like an SEV, so you can threaten some sort of pressure, but you don't have to necessarily be doing pressure. It's probably good to just always get the lings so that it's, you know, it always looks the same. Um, but you could get into mind games whereas if you don't make the lings whenever you macro and you do make the lings whenever you're pressuring and an opponent knows this about you, you could, in like a tournament situation, you could, you know, switch it up and not make the lings, but you're actually not macroing. You're like, you know, you're doing an attack, and because they see no lings, they're like, oh, he's probably macroing, but they don't. So there's a lot of mind games there. But so I would just choose a way to play and stick with it, and probably with the lings is good. Now, yeah, queen first is definitely something that we want here. Because like if you notice, like we're not even well, okay, if we're gonna go for this Roach Warren, I mean I guess if the timing doesn't matter. Okay, I'm gonna assume that this is part of the build and say it's fine, but I'm gonna keep letting you cook here. More drones, this is fine. We're going across map. I mean, this is kind of the situation in my opinion. This is where you're sort of like, if he goes Reaper first and you go around the Reaper, you would probably like him to not see your Roach Warren. Probably. So like it probably, and this is another one of those situations where it's like, you know, you could always just go across map and try to make the game complicated. And maybe he sees the Roach Warren, maybe he doesn't. If you get the kill on an SCV and he doesn't see the Roach Warren, you're like, and you pull the Reaper home, you're like super happy. But like conversely, if he micros well and you don't get any kills, you just delay, it's probably fine. But then he doesn't see the Roach Warren, it's probably a wash. But if he does see the Roach Warren, then you're going to be unhappy. There's a lot of possibilities. You just kind of need to understand that like one job of these lings could be staying home to help deny the Reaper Scout, which is another reason why the Queen would be important. If you're okay giving that up and you are doing it with full knowledge, then go ahead. However, especially at the level you are, I'll tell you at the level that I am often finding myself more and more, like I said, going towards simplicity. So it's simpler to always keep the lings home and always use them to deny scouting if they try to scout. And then if they don't try to scout, like it's not that big of a deal. But I would always go for simplicity myself, so that I can, because it's frankly you're never going to win or lose based off of anything that I just said. You're going to win or lose based off of tightening up the macro and getting the macro really tight, getting the attack really tight, and then getting the attack while you're macroing really tight too. So ultimately, the macro and the tightness of the macro is going to be what's important. So reducing complexity. If you're going to introduce complexity, you need to be very aware that you're introducing complexity and like pay special attention to your macro behind the complexity. Like every game, you need to be very critical of like what you do with these lings and when you're like a second late on larva because you're doing something with the lings and identifying those situations. Otherwise, then I would just, if you're not willing or wanting to do that, then I would just leave them out personally and focus on the macro. So there's a time to introduce complexity so you can like get your multitasking. I guess we made 4 links. Okay, we did make 4 links. There's a time to introduce complexity so that you can build the multitasking skills of moving units while attacking. You just need to decide if you want to, like, where you want to commit to it. With a build like this, you're about to commit to it pretty soon anyway, so, you know, why commit sooner is my thought. But I've said my piece on that. Okay, 5 roaches. I like it. I think I saw a pig doing this build, funnily enough. And I guess he's saying that you should go across map with the lings because you're not making a queen. But like, I don't know why. Why aren't we making this queen? Like, we could make the queen. We're making it now anyway. We still have tons of money, and we have enough supply for that plus the roaches. So I'm gonna say this queen, not making this queen in this build, part of this build is wrong. The roach one might be late. That's fair. Let's take a look. Thank you for the follow, Lau. Should probably turn off alerts when I'm recording videos, but hey, this is what we do here, you know? We're low budget. Low budget. Should be right at 150. Okay, then it is late. Quite significantly late. Oh, wait, hold on. I don't want to do you disservice. Yeah, so 90 minerals late. That's quite late. Quite late. Okay. But even so, with 90 minerals, like, I still feel like, even if you delay one roach, so the thing is, you can make most of your roaches here, a lot of your roaches here, and then, like, they're gonna take time to walk, so, like, then if you make a roach or two later here, like, they'll still sync up nicely. And you kind of really want the roaches to sync up nicely so that they all kind of arrive as one. You give them the least amount of time to react possible when he sees the roaches. So, like, even if you make the roaches here early, you're probably going to bring them back to your roaches anyway. So I think an optimization I would suggest to pig on this is if this is I think I would still suggest the queen pretty early. Right now, I guess we don't have. I mean, I guess we don't have supply for a queen. But, like, if this is a roach. The supply is a big issue. But, like, okay, I would prefer a queen than these fourlings, if I'm being honest with you. Yeah, I think so. That'd be my like a queen other besides these fourlings would be better for me, I think. Okay, let's stop dithering and look at the attack. The lings do help with the attack. Like DPS down the supply depot. But, like, I mean, the macro transition just would feel a lot more smooth if we had the queens faster. So I don't know. Yeah, I would recommend queen, I think, still, and not the lings. Like, it's not that big of a deal for the attack. And like I said, okay, so the biggest thing I said is, like, the macro behind this attack is going to be the most important thing to getting ahead. And it just want us to note that, like, okay, we are floating larva. Okay, we spit it pretty quickly, so that's pretty good. Attack. Let's see. We're floating one larva right now. It needs to be spent. Probably should be a drone. Now we're floating 3 larvae, should be drones. And then after that, an overlord. And then... Now what? How is the injects? How is the inject timings looking? If the Terran is good, they can micro you to death to 3 because lack of queen. Yeah, true. I have Roach at home. Probably not before the Reacher gets out. Not before the Reaper comes up. Even though it is a very fast Roach Hornets, I don't think it's quite fast enough. So, yeah, I think we really want the Queen in this situation. And Pig's build also is going to rely... It's not repeatable, this build that Pig's saying, against a good player, because it's relying on the Terran opponent not knowing it's coming and reacting super well, which is a concern. Like, again, at a lower level, I would recommend tending towards builds that, like, even if your opponent knows it's coming, like, you still have tools to deal. Like, they can't super hard counter you. But yeah, good inject timings, so I like that. You're kind of in luck that I just looked at, like, a bunch of Roach, like, super early Roach Warren builds yesterday. So I'm actually much more qualified to talk about this now than I was before. So the macro's okay, but, like, right now it's starting to fail. So okay, we spent. The fail is one, I don't know what this roach is for. Useless roach. This roach should be a overlord. That's the biggest fail right now. And then the next thing is, okay, now we need a third, by the way. So no more drones until we get a third after this. And I would also probably say like we need to start getting our creep rolling. So like we probably should like these shouldn't be injects at this point. These should be creeps. Maybe even like as soon as this queen is born, or maybe this queen walks and like creeps. But we don't, because like the other thing is we like notice how much larva we have, and we have like injects, and like we need to be affording a third. The super fast lair, I guess we're going for like Midas or something, or Roach speed, which I suppose is a play. But if you wanted to play a more standard game behind this, you could always just grab a third there. Obviously, 2 layers are not good. 2-base Muta is just okay. I don't believe in a 2-base Muta, to be honest with you, with 300 mineral CC. I play, and this is coming from someone that like at the beginning of this patch, I played exclusively 2-base Muta because I thought it was pretty decent to work on my mechanics. Like, and I had to stop playing it just because it is so difficult to like with against 300 mineral CCs. Like he's already got a third CC. He's got his orbital on the way already. You know, I don't think we can go 2-base Muta. We're kind of massively ahead, but like I think the 2-base Muta might be like one way to like potentially let him back in the game. Maybe. It's hard to say. I'm not a fan of the 2-base Muta play anymore, and that comes from someone who was a big fan of it. Not that it can't be good. We're very like okay, so we're very like we're very indecisive. I guess what happened here is like we realized that our spire was about to be done, so we couldn't afford this queen. Fair enough. However, again, we still need creep tumors because we still need creep with this at some point, in theory. So I think that's fair. We're still feeling out the build. But yeah, creep tumors for sure. Like the lack of creep is becoming like a game-ending sentence at this point. Which I do think we win, but like just note that like a high-level Zerg at this point would be like, well, I suppose it depends on the Zerg, but they should be screaming. They don't have creep. Okay, so now we get into a situation where we're going Mutas against Cyclones. In my opinion, these Roaches already, so like we already switched into Roach speed, so maybe this is fine, but we also need Ling speed. So if we're going to go Roaches against Cyclones, even though he has like Inferno Preigniter, you need Lings in addition to the Roaches. You probably need Lings in addition to the Mutas. Like, so you're gonna need Ling speed here as an option almost always, no matter what. Because you need Lings to tank lock-ons. Like whenever you engage in a fight, the fights are going to be snowball fights, which I think I've talked, I don't know if you've seen in my videos, but I've talked about snowball fights before. If you're Muta Ling against factories or Mutas against Cyclones, it's going to be like who has more. Can you kill all of his like Cyclones before he kills like a significant amount of your Mutas? Like it's going to snowball one way or the other. And so one way to help that out is to have Lings tank some lock-ons from the Cyclones. It's absolutely the same idea. No, it's not a build order loss, Yo-Yo, but you have to play it properly for sure. And it's going to involve taking really good fights. It's going to involve having creep, letting him come to you, tanking lock-ons with Lings, and then attacking. So, no, diving the mineral line here is sort of like at this point you want to get like, for instance, we want to get like as little as we can. The tank's great here. I'm like we could have tried to kill this command center, but he's already got 3 command centers anyway. So like I don't even know if that's worth it. You could try to potentially kill. You could kill Tech Lapse. Tank's a great target. So it's like where are you close to? So when you're doing Muta Harass, it's always like, where are you close to? Now, we're actually scouting early here, before the Mutas even get in. So like here, we can start to like. There's no here actually because we've scouted early. I think it's completely fair to go for mineral line here because there's nothing against the mineral line. So here, what if I'm looking at his entire base? His entire base is completely naked. Yeah, I'm going for the mineral line. Now, if there's a missile turret in the mineral line, then I'm going for, and I see the full base. Probably what I'm going for is first this tank, and then I'll see if I can try to get like a tech lab or something, or try to pick off like SCVs. But the big thing is, I want to make sure that I don't actually engage any cyclone. So as soon as I see a cyclone, I'm completely out, right? Not you don't want to lose a single muta to cyclones at this point because the mutas were a huge investment on your part, and they need to pin him into his base. If we ever fight his cyclones and we lose, even if like 1 or 2 or 3 mutas, especially because we're not making more. If we're making more, then we can't lose those mutas because we need to snowball. If we aren't continuing to make mutas, we still need the mutas we made to pay off and to pin him in his base while we get together our follow up. So we need link speed. We need creep. You know, we have roach speed, so that's good. And we need a 4th base because we see that he's already even making a 4th. He hasn't landed, but he's still making a 4th. And we need to make sure that these mutas, they can dive, but then they need to know where their out path is. And as soon as they see a cyclone, if there's a missile turret here, they can dive this tank. That's fine too. That'll be useful because we're going to be we're switching to ground. So killing off his siege tank will always be very useful. That could, in fact, it's kind of it's probably a debatable play here. Like, someone like Yo-Yo may disagree with me, but if I had perfect information of this game, like I was like, just I had like at this moment I knew exactly the game state and I had unlimited time to plan. I would say that this siege tank might be the most valuable target because we're already switching in and like also grant me this favor. We already have metabolic boost. I might start massing nothing but like Roachling. Target the siege tank as my number one thing. Continue to mass Roachling. And then, he's going to be pumping nothing but cyclones. And then as soon as he comes across map, or if I keep him pinned, either or, when we're ready, we'll go and completely snowball him in his base because his units will not be able to run away. So like they'll be pretty bad because like you'll be able to like this was his one defense against getting overrun, snowballed, if you will. So that might be a thing that would cause the avalanche. So this tank is probably like if we're playing perfectly and we have a really good read on the situation, this tank is probably like the number one target. However, 9 times out of 10, the number one target is going to be an undefended mineral line. But we had a really good overseer scout, so like we should be able to know. Okay, so we're doing an okay job, but the big issue is behind it. We're not macroing, so we're not doing a plan of like we're just making roaches. Yeah, so it can't just be roaches. We need the lings. This is the big issue with our with what's going on behind us is, besides all the other things I mentioned, the biggest issue is no lings and no ling speed. Yeah, and then also if we have lings and ling speed, then this sort of move out can't happen without us knowing. We can have a ling here, ling here, ling here, ling here, and then as we're moving this way, he'll attack here, and we can know that it's possible. So we'll take all the units that are here, put them on a different hotkey, and then start rallying everything home. Anything that's not here, we'll pull home and start rallying reinforcements home to defend. Because we don't have to base trade here. It's just because so StarCraft is also becomes a game once you understand the strategy and once you macro it well. And in this case, you are macroing well enough, and your strategy is frankly good enough. Although we talked about how it could improve, that This is purely a positional problem and being out of position and not knowing that he's pushing out. So this is a very fundamental problem. We need to be able to always see when he's pushing out. Creep helps us with that, but more fundamentally than that, having lings on move out paths. I guess let me look at exactly, like I feel like, yeah, so like if he attacks here, then I guess we actually, luckily we do have a changeling here. Let's see, we would be able to respond sooner if we were closer. So like we wouldn't be so far across the map. And then in this particular case, yeah. So like these roaches, for instance, could be coming home as well. So we could have slightly more roaches home. And then the thing is, you need to look at like, okay, he has a huge army. We have a huge army here, or like a decent number of units here. We have a huge army here, right? Even if he has reinforcements, like a large portion of his army is over here. So we know that like we're probably going to trade pretty well here. Preemptively, we want to pull back, and like we know that we have a bunch of like reinforcements. So we actually don't want to defend this base. We want to take this base potentially, but ultimately we want to pull back and pull for reinforcements further away than this base because we're not ready to fight here with this for units. So this is what I like to call being avalanched. Like in this case, this army can never kill us because if you even look at all of the like if all of our units are together or ape together strong, then we probably trade well enough against us that our reinforcements like clean up this army. Also, these drones should never be made in this situation unless we made them after we saw before we saw. No, we see. Okay, so maybe we don't notice. I don't think we notice. So, but like ultimately, those drones should be lings. But we didn't notice. That's fine. But if we ape together everything, then we at least trade well enough that he doesn't like get to like base trade us. However, if we go in piece by piece, then he starts to trade and he can start to like pick off units very cost efficiently, and he can start to turn. He can, even though he doesn't have enough units to snowball us immediately, he can start an avalanche, right? He can start killing a little bit here, killing a little bit here, killing a little bit here, and then all of a sudden, for free, right? Completely free. For free. Essentially, right? The roach got like 3 attacks off on this Hellbat. For free. Now, like, we're ignoring this, of course, right? Like, obviously we're doing counter damage, so that's good, but like, we're looking at it over here. Here, he sort of anti-avalanche himself. He's like snowballing, but then he pulls together. It was a little bit good for you, but not quite good enough because of all the stuff that has happened bad so far. And now we're like pulling together, but we've already been avalanched. So this very small amount of units, even though it really wasn't enough to snowball us, it did avalanche us, right? So that's like the biggest issue here. And if we would have just pulled back from this base, pulled everything together, maybe he kills this base, but then he can't actually overrun here. We can just take this base and, you know, we've killed everything over here and the game's just over. Game is very complicated now. And very complicated. We should be droning here. And then you don't actually really need to do anything here. We have a bigger army than him, and you have an established base already. You don't need to do anything here except pull all of your units back here and start establishing your economy, I would think. Get these... Oh, well, we've actually killed his... Whoa, okay, wait, did we kill his army? We killed his army, too. Okay, so we killed his army. Okay. So we've killed his entire army. We killed all his production. At this point, you could take half your army and come here, or you can even take like a few. This is where you say that you can take a few units and start looking, which is probably like the safe, mature call. Yeah, this is fine. But you do want to pull most of your army back here because you're pretty sure you're ahead at this point, I would say. So I would pull most of your units here. You can send your mutas out on the map to try to like scout things out, like your muta that's alive. And sure, even the other mutas, that's fine too. Ultimately, the roaches should be pulling back here. Mutas should be going to all the bases. It's like if we look at like where he can be and where he can't be. So like we know that we know he's not here because all overs are here. Which by the way, they should be like maybe here instead. We know he's not in any of these bases, right? Because we have them. And this base is right next to the base. So the roaches, once they deal with all this, the roaches can come back this way and then come back this way and check these bases. And then come back to our base. And then one should kind of come around here just to check for this little BS stunt that he pulled, right? The mutas can all check then, he probably isn't this base, but you can check it because it's on the way. This muta can go check base, base, base. These mutas come in here, check base, base, base. Right. Yeah, I mean. Hyperfly, why wouldn't he? Okay. 3, where does he even have? Oh my god. That's insane.
Cluster under.
It's really hard to say. Like, I mean, have this in your mind as a potential way you could lose. And make sure you have, I mean, we have a spawning pool, we have a lair. So it's like, I wouldn't say you can really do anything here. Except, like, yeah, at this point now we just got to think about, like, any way we could possibly lose. We have mutas. I guess at this point, like, some sort of air transition is the only thing possible. So I would make nothing but mutas with our, make an overseer, and then nothing but mutas with our gas, and then drones, and then like spores. Because at this point, you do just think about like what's any way we can lose, and like having air that we can't see is probably like the only possible way to lose this game at this point. And now that we see this, for sure, we want to like okay, we killed this like spores, right? Because we saw that that's an intention. So like basically I would put all of our stuff right here. You could put it, you don't put it here because it's almost out of resources, right? So you put all your stuff here because you can like remake all of your stuff. Make spores, make sure you have an overseer, and then like you can start to make spores here and whatever, start remaking queens, these sorts of things. It's like the same game as it was before, but it's just like you're not sure why he's in the game, so you just cover it on literally every base. So you start hammering queens, you hammer spores, you think, where is my mining? And you don't need 4 bases. You just killed every base on the map. So you don't even really need these. Like queen should be on the forefront of your mind here, right? Spores should be on the forefront of your mind here. Securing your mining should be on the forefront of your mind. Making sure your overlords are somewhere safe, they aren't going to die. Making sure you have an overseer. This should all be on the forefront of your mind. More bases should not be on the forefront of your mind because we just killed literally all of his bases, or like most of them anyway. Like we know that he can't be like ahead. I mean the infestors are fine, but like super unnecessary. So here, now that we see this, yeah, of course we make spores, right? But the thing is, you can make like a couple spores here and then a couple spores on this side, right? And then like again, if we want to be super like anal about this, like you can pull the thing is he has like 6 banshees, so we want to make sure he doesn't this is back to the avalanche situation. So at this point all we want to do is stop the bleeding because we know that like he can't have more stuff than us. It's like it's not even possible. So we want to get anti-avalanche behavior. Pull all shit here, all of it, until the spores are done, right? Once the spores are done, and we should have queens here as well, right? Then the mutas, we can pull the infestors here, the roaches here, spores all around, as many queens as we can make, right? Hopefully we have like 2 overseers, but if not, we can take the mutas with their overseer out on the map, and the queens and the spores and the infestors and the roaches and the ravagers all stay here. and we rebuild our base here.
Enemy forces.
Anti-avalanche behavior is what we need to engage in. Anti-avalanche behavior is I'm not ready to fight this right now, although technically we really could. Like we could. You really have two options with the mutas. You could target these with the mutas, but like I would just use the mutas to like figure out like what are you doing? Like where's your base of operations? You gotta have a base of operations, right? We just cleared the entire map of your bases of operations. And yeah, so this is like a really actually important lesson against banshees. You're not just worried about your mineral lines, especially when they start making more banshees. You also need to make spores in front. So now we're getting avalanched. He's got no way to win this game except like if these banshees get to be uncontested and do what they're doing. Doing this? Oh no. Him killing the army is whatever. Because that means he's not killing our bases. We're fine with this. That's fine. And then he leaves. Okay. But I think that both we got ourselves into this situation to begin with, and we got into this situation now because we were not aware of the avalanche concept. So we hadn't, maybe we're aware of it, but we're not like thinking about it like viscerally in our mind when we're playing. So make sure that we are engaged. Like when we're getting into the situations where we think we're really far ahead, actually at all stages of the game, but especially when you get into these quote unquote one situations, make sure that you are hyper, you're thinking, oh, what are the ways I can losing? And one of those massive ways that you could be losing is you get avalanched by a small amount of units doing way too much damage. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and also subscribing to Ladder Legends, and you can get your own replay analyzed.